Hello everyone. I hope you're all okay, making the best of the time that you've got at home. Special hello to children in class 14. I'm missing you loads and hope we see each other in school again soon. Anyway, I thought I'd read you a story, and it's a story by an author called Tom Palmer, who you may have heard of. He has written quite a few football related books, so Roy of the Rovers, and he also writes books about World War II. He has written a story. Well, he's writing part of a story every day. So I thought I'd read the first part to you today. And it's a story to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. So it's quite topical at the moment. And it's called Spitfire. So here goes. Yuzuru, Lily and Danny had been studying the Spitfire in the RAF Museum, London, for 10 minutes and from all angles when it happened. Work in threes and create a school project about something important you can find from history, Mrs. Trenchard had told them. Well, they all wanted to do the Spitfire. It was such an obvious choice for their Year 7 history project. Was there any more famous object in the history of Britain? No. Yuzuru saw the lady first. She pointed her out to Lily and Danny, and the trio considered her as she came towards them. Medium height, light hair, a hat with a brim, a kind smile, and in front of her a collecting tin and a small board of pin badges. "Care to support the Spitfire Fund?" the lady asked. Her voice sounded clipped, a bit like the Queen's on Christmas Day. Lily squinted at the pin badges. 4 rows of tiny brass Spitfires. "Do you get a badge if you donate?" Lily asked, her hand already in her pocket. "Yes, my dear," the lady replied. Each of the 3 friends put a £1 coin in the lady's tin. They saw it had the words "Our Local Fighter Plane Fund" written on it, along with a simple line drawing of a Spitfire. Now they looked at their pin badges, which felt cold and metallic. They were 2 centimetres wide and had the word Spitfire engraved across the wings. Each of the trio carefully pinned the badge onto their school jumpers. Immediately, everything changed. Dramatically, frighteningly. For Lily, it was the smell of petrol or some kind of fuel burning and crowds of faces around her. For Yuzuru, it was loud buzzing and vibrations running straight through her. Danny could see a huge sky above him, tiny planes weaving their trails in corkscrews and spirals. Instinctively, they grabbed each other. It was Lily who acted first, tearing off her pin badge and then easing the tiny Spitfires off the tops of Danny and Yuzuru too. They staggered to sit on a row of 3 chairs away from the aircraft. "What was that?" "Did you? I don't understand." Now each of them turned over their Spitfire badge in their hands. "Mine's warm," Yuzuru said. "Really warm. It was cold before." Lily nodded. "Mine too." "When I had this on," Lily said, holding up her pin badge to the light. "You were somewhere else?" Danny finished her sentence. "Yes." "Me too," Yuzuru agreed. "Do you think—" Her voice trailed off. Danny was glancing nervously around the RAF Museum, under the roofs of the old hangar, between the Lancaster and the Lightning aeroplanes, searching for the lady. "She's vanished," he told the 2 girls. "We should have asked her more about what the Spitfire Fund is," Lily frowned. "We need to ask someone so that we can understand." Together the 3 children approached 2 members of staff in red uniforms, museum ground crew written across their backs, 1 woman, 1 man. "Excuse me," Lily began. "Can you tell us any information about the Spitfire Fund, please?" They had all concealed their pin badges in their pockets or hands. "Of course, that's a great question," the woman said, her eyes excited. It was clear she loved the museum and the stories the planes had to tell its visitors. "In 1940, the Nazis were planning to attack and occupy Britain," she began, "like they had occupied most of the rest of Europe. And we needed Spitfire aircraft to defend ourselves, but there wasn't enough money to pay for them. So hundreds of people volunteered to collect money from the public and gave them little badges as a way of saying thank you, a bit like poppies or red noses now. There's a real example on display in Hangar 1. Danny was desperate to show the woman his badge, but after a sharp look from Lily, he kept it in his pocket. The woman carried on explaining. People would donate a penny. 6 pennies would pay for a spark plug. And some people donated more. £40 for a petrol tank or £2,000 for a Merlin engine. Towns used to compete against each other to see who could raise money for a whole Spitfire. There was a famous case in Wolverhampton, near where our other RAF museum is in Cosford. A whole Spitfire aircraft was paid for by the people who lived there. The city was presented with a plaque. You can see the plaque in the museum. Oh, I've been there with my dad, Yuzuru interrupted. Then, the man went on, soon after that, the Battle of Britain took place, exactly 80 years ago, right here over London, the battle that saved us from being taken over by the Germans, like this country was once taken over by the Romans and then the Normans. After hearing all the fascinating facts from the museum ground crew, the children walked to the cafe. They bought drinks and cake and then went to sit down outside on one of the benches in the sunshine. It was a lovely day, but none of the children had their minds on the weather. They were thinking about what had happened when they'd put on their Spitfire Fund badges. As they ate, they discussed all they'd seen and heard and smelled when things had become so weird. I saw aeroplanes flying in circles, diving, even crashing into each other, Danny started, and bombs falling on a big city. Oh, I saw a mob of people surrounding us. Lily pulled her face. It was frightening, and I smelled petrol. Yeah, Yuzuru added, and the sound of dozens of planes flying around. Yuzuru, Lily and Danny stared at the skies above them. Do you think we were seeing it? The actual Battle of Britain? Now the silence. None of them saying anything, but they were all thinking. Lily looked hard at her two friends until they returned her gaze, and their faces all changed at the same time, from frowns to smiles. The things we saw, Yuzuru started. The planes and the bombs and the danger, Danny asked. Lily paused before she spoke, just to be sure they were all thinking the same thing. She held up her Spitfire Fund badge and grinned. Shall we see what happens if we put them on again? As one, the trio began to pin their badges onto their clothes for a second time. Second part of the story will be coming out tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you all stay well and safe. See you soon. Bye-bye.